The man behind the perfect smile. On Instagram they looked flawless. Matching outfits. Sun-drenched vacations. Her captions were filled with heart emojis and words like, forever. To strangers scrolling through their feed, she was living a dream life. But what they didn't see was that every smile was rehearsed. Every picture was a performance. And behind the perfect filter, subtle remarks. Sweet but sharp. You're so lucky to have me, no one else would put up with you. She laughed at first, thinking it was just his sense of humor. She stopped calling her mom. She stopped answering texts. But his words didn't disappear. They stayed. They grew roots. Soon he was protecting her. He didn't like her friends. They're bad for you, he said. He didn't like her family. They don't really care about you. And slowly, one by one, her lifelines were cut. And he became the center of her world. A world that was shrinking by the day. He was a master manipulator. If she cried, he told her she was too emotional. If she was angry, she was crazy. When she caught him in a lie, he'd twist the story until she doubted her own memory. Maybe she had overreacted. Maybe she was being dramatic. And after every fight, he'd hold her close, apologize softly, and promise to do better. She wanted so badly to believe him. So she did. Until the next day when he'd twist the knife again. To everyone else, he was perfect, a gentleman, a provider, the man who loved his wife so much. He worried about her mental health. No one questioned his version of her. They couldn't see her breaking. The house they shared was beautiful. Spotless floors. Fresh flowers on the counter. Family photos on every wall. But to her, it felt like a cage. She stopped wearing makeup. Not because she didn't care, but because she didn't recognize the woman staring back at her. Her smile felt like a mask. Her eyes were dull, empty. She felt like a guest in her own body. She moved through that home like a ghost. Careful. Quiet. Every sound she made felt too loud. She counted the seconds before he got home. Her stomach twisting with dread at every sound of his car in the driveway. At night, she'd lie awake, watching his chest rise and fall, while her own heart pounded like a trapped bird. The thought of leaving came like a whisper. But whispers can be dangerous. She'd seen the way his temper flared when he didn't get his way. She'd heard him say, "If you ever left me, you'd regret it." So she stayed. But her mind was already planning a way out. She started hiding money. A few bills at a time, slipped into the lining of an old purse. She created fake accounts on her phone, deleted search history, looked up shelters and hotlines at 3 a.m. She practiced smiling in the mirror so he wouldn't suspect. Every day became a performance. Every kiss, every "I love you," was rehearsed to perfection. But fear followed her like a shadow. What if he found out? What if he saw through her act? She started imagining his hands around her throat, his voice whispering, "You can't survive without me." And some nights, she almost believed him. To the world, he was still flawless. The loving husband with the beautiful wife. The man who worked hard, who brought her flowers, who worried about her depression. When guests came over, he played the part effortlessly, smiling, pouring drinks, telling everyone how lucky he was to have her. They didn't see her clenched fists under the table. They didn't see her hollow eyes. They didn't hear the silent scream in her head, begging for someone to notice. That night, he scrolled through their photos before bed, as he always did, smiling at the illusion he built. But she was already gone. Not physically, not yet. But in her mind, she was slipping out of that house, out of that life, out of his control. She had memorized every creak of the floorboards, every place to step silently. She had a plan. And though fear clawed at her throat, for the first time in months, she felt something like hope. Because to the world, he was the perfect husband. But tonight, she would become the ghost that haunted him. The woman who got away. Now she faked. Every "I love you" she whispered. Every dinner she cooked and plate she washed while his voice dripped control into her ears. She'd been memorizing his patterns. The time he fell asleep. The way his phone alarm always went off at 6 a.m. Which floorboards creaked in the hallway. Where he kept the spare keys. That night, the air in their perfect home felt heavier than usual. He'd gone to bed early, scrolling through their photos like a man admiring a painting he owned. She lay next to him, silent, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure he'd hear it. He reached over, kissed her forehead, whispered, "Good night, baby." She whispered it back, her voice steady even as her hands trembled under the blanket. When his breathing slowed and the room filled with the sound of his steady snores, she slipped out of bed. She didn't turn on the light. She didn't dare. Instead, she moved through the dark like a shadow, the plan playing in her mind step by step. She already had a small bag hidden in the laundry room, just a few clothes, a toothbrush, a photo of her mother she'd slipped from a frame. Her escape money was stuffed in an old book at the bottom of the bag. Every single step creaked louder than she remembered. Every single sound made her freeze, breath caught in her throat. At the front door, her hands shook so badly she almost dropped the keys. She glanced back at the dark hallway, half expecting him to appear. His perfect smile replaced by the monster she knew behind it. But the house stayed still. Silent. Watching. She opened the door slowly, the hinges groaning like they were betraying her. Cool night air rushed in. She hadn't felt air like that in so long, free, sharp, alive. She stepped out barefoot, closing the door behind her as quietly as she could. And then she ran. She ran until her lungs burned, until her legs felt like they'd collapse beneath her. She didn't stop until she reached the gas station 2 miles away. Inside, under the buzzing fluorescent lights, she asked the clerk if she could use the phone. Her voice cracked, the first crack in months. She called a number she'd memorized from a women's shelter website. When the woman on the other end answered, soft and steady, she finally allowed herself to cry. That night, a volunteer came to pick her up. She climbed into a car that smelled like lavender and fast food. And as the city lights blurred past the window, she felt the weight of him still on her chest. But she was breathing without his permission for the first time in years. Epilogue: The man behind the smile. The next morning he woke to an empty house. Her phone sat on the nightstand. Her closet was half empty. Her toothbrush was gone. He called the police, claimed she'd run away, told their friends she was unstable. On Instagram he posted a photo of them laughing at the beach, captioned, "Miss my girl. Come home soon." But she never went back. She disappeared into a world where his perfect smile couldn't reach her. A world where she could breathe again. And every time he scrolls through those old photos, he sees a woman who no longer exists. Not because he broke her, but because she escaped him.